A man is standing by his swimming pool at a family barbecue when a family of ducks lifts off the water and flies away. He watches them go, and then he hits the concrete. He's unconscious. An ambulance is involved. They run tests on his heart, his blood, his brain, and everything comes back clean because there is nothing wrong with his heart. What has happened is that a man who has ordered other men killed has been knocked flat by some birds, leaving a swimming pool. And the entire rest of the series proceeds from the question of why. I want to talk about Tony Soprano's panic attacks because they're the actual engine of the show and because almost every discussion of him skips past them to get to the crimes. The crimes are the setting, the condition is the subject, and the condition is not guilt, and it isn't stress, and it isn't a metaphor. It's an extremely specific and extremely common deficit. A man who has enormous interior weather and no vocabulary whatsoever to describe it, either to anyone else or to himself. Start with what's actually happening in his body, because it's worth being precise. A panic attack is the body running a full emergency protocol in the absence of an emergency. Heart rate, breathing, adrenaline, the whole apparatus that evolved for a genuine threat, deployed at a barbecue. It is not fear of anything you can point at. It's the physical component of terror arriving without the story that would explain it. And notice what that means for a man like this specifically. His entire position in the world rests on physical dominance and total self-control. He is the person other men are frightened of. Now his body has begun doing something he cannot predict, cannot prevent, and cannot conceal. And if it happens in front of the wrong people, everything he has is gone. So the first thing the illness takes from him is the ability to admit he has it. It's a condition whose primary symptom, in his case, is silence about the condition. Which brings us to his stated theory of manhood. And the show gives it to him early and lets him keep it. He tells his psychiatrist that the problem with the world is that men used to be strong and silent. That the American man of the old films didn't sit around discussing his feelings. He had feelings. Presumably, and he simply did what needed doing and shut up about it. That's the model. That's the whole prescription. Whatever is happening inside you. The correct response is to not mention it. Two things about that. First, the man he's describing was a character in a movie, played by an actor, written by a screenwriter. He's modeling himself on a fiction and blaming reality for failing to match it. But second, and more importantly, the theory isn't stupid. It works. For a while, for a lot of men. Suppression is a genuinely effective short-term strategy. You can carry an enormous amount that way. The catch is what happens to the material you're carrying, and the answer is that it does not evaporate. It gets stored. And here's the mechanism at the center of everything, which the show demonstrates rather than explains. He has two channels. Two. Every single thing that happens inside him has to come out through one of them. Channel 1 is rage. Channel 2 is appetite, food, drink, sex, spending, all interchangeable. Watch him for a season with that in mind, and it becomes almost mechanical. He feels grief, and he eats. He feels humiliated, and he beats someone. He feels frightened, and he finds someone weaker to frighten. He feels lonely, and he takes a new mistress, and the mistress is never really the point. He feels tenderness toward his daughter, and it comes out as a fight about her boyfriend. The feelings are all present and correct. He's not empty. He's not a psychopath in the sense people casually mean. The equipment works fine. It's the routing that's broken. He has one output for everything painful and one output for everything hungry. And the entire range of human interiority has to be forced through those two pipes. That's what the panic attacks are. They're the overflow. The material that fits through neither pipe comes out through the floor. And the show is startlingly specific about where it's stored. The attacks are attached to meat. Cold cuts, the smell of a deli, the sight of certain food. It seems absurd until the therapy traces it back, and what's underneath is a childhood memory. A small boy watching his father commit a piece of casual butchery on another man, and then the family sitting down to a celebratory meal in a good mood. That's the chain. Violence, provision, food, love. All fused in a single afternoon when he was too young to separate them. And it was never processed, because there was nobody in that house who could have helped him process it. So it went into storage exactly as it arrived, with everything still attached to everything else. 40 years later, a sandwich puts him on the floor. That's what somatization actually is, and it's the least mystical thing in the world. The body is not being poetic. It's a felsing system of last resort. Anything that can't be thought about has to be kept somewhere, and there is only one other place. Now here's the detail that proves the feelings are all there. And it's the tenderest thing in the series. He can grieve for animals, the ducks at the start, and later a racehorse, a beautiful, unlucky animal he becomes genuinely devoted to. He visits her. He talks to her when nobody's around. When she dies badly, he is completely, uncomplicatedly devastated in a way he never manages for a single human being in 6 seasons, and he does something about it that costs a great deal. That's not a quirk, that's the diagnosis. An animal is a safe object. It receives affection and cannot ask him a question. It can't require reciprocity, or make demands, or witness him, or use anything against him later. There is no risk of being known. So the full apparatus, love, grief, gentleness, all of it entirely intact, comes online instantly, because nothing is being asked of him in return. He is not a man who can't feel. He's a man who can only feel in the direction of things that can't talk back, which brings me to the therapy and to the part I find genuinely bleak. The premise of his treatment is essentially that language is the missing tool. Give the man words. Let him name what's happening. Teach him to say fear instead of throwing a lamp, and it works. He gets the words. Over the years, he becomes remarkably articulate about his own condition. He can discuss his mother's pathology, his patterns, his defenses, the whole architecture. By the middle of the series, he is better at describing Tony Soprano than most people are at describing themselves. He does not change at all. That's the show's hardest finding, and I think it's true. Naming a feeling is not the same as processing it. Vocabulary is necessary, and it is not sufficient. He acquires the ability to narrate his interior life with precision, and continues to route all of it through rage and appetite, because the words went into a different part of him than the material did. You can end up more fluent about yourself, and no different, and the fluency will even make it harder for anyone to help you, because now you can preempt every observation with a better phrased version of it. Now, the objection, and it's the one most people watching will feel. Isn't this all extremely generous? He's a violent criminal. Maybe the panic is guilt. Maybe his body is doing the only honest thing left in him, and the correct response to a man who murders people fainting at barbecues is good. I understand it, but the timeline doesn't support it. The condition starts in childhood. The first collapse happens when he's a boy who hasn't done anything yet. He isn't panicking about what he's done. He's panicking about what was done to him and what he was never given any way to hold. And more to the point, strip the criminality out entirely, and the deficit is not rare. It is, in fact, the modal condition of an enormous number of men, an interior life with 2 exits, a firm belief that discussing it is contemptible, and a body that eventually takes over the job the mouth won't do, which is why nobody around him could have helped him either, and the show is careful about this. Look for a man in his world with a working emotional vocabulary. There isn't one. The entire crew's expressive range consists of insult, food, and violence, deployed with real skill and total consistency. Affection between these men is expressed exclusively as mockery. Grief is expressed as eating. The closest thing to intimacy any of them achieves is sitting next to each other in silence. So when he says he learned there was something wrong with talking, where exactly was he supposed to have learned otherwise? Not from his father, who is a frightened small man performing largeness. Not from his mother, who was incapable of reflecting a feeling back at anyone. Not from any of the 40 men he sees every week. He inherited a language with no words for the thing he needed to say. And that's the part that reaches well beyond one show about New Jersey. Emergency departments are full of men convinced they're having a heart attack who are not having a heart attack. They are usually in their 30s or 40s. They almost always describe it in physical terms, because physical terms are respectable. A chest is allowed to hurt, and a very large number of them will be told the tests are clear, feel humiliated, and go home without ever finding out what actually happened, because the follow-up would require a conversation nobody in their life is equipped to start. The body will file it. The body always files it, and it will keep the file for decades. And it will open it at random, in a supermarket, at a wedding, at a barbecue, when some small thing, a smell, a song, a family of ducks lifting off a swimming pool, touches the edge of something that was put away in 1967 and never looked at again. He wasn't crying about the ducks. He didn't know what he was crying about. That's the entire condition. The feeling arrives at full strength with no label on it, and the man it's happening to is the last person in the world equipped to read it.